So if we go into our redshift drop over here, if we go to output, common, you can see it's set to go to $hip render and then whatever. So we could call this sphere render. And we generally want to use EXR. So if you're not familiar with 3D in general, you probably know image formats. So I mean, there's JPEG and there's PNG and stuff like that. But generally, EXR is just a best format for stuff like CG. So what we do inside of 3D, we're generally working in a linear space. Do you remember the when we're working on VOPs, we're trying to work in a 0 to 1 space. It can also go above that, can also go below that, but that's generally linear space. So it just goes from to negative to positive. So if you have a regular, so let's go in After Effects and just show this a little bit. So generally just a JPEG image, let's do 1920 by 1080. A JPEG image would be, let's put this to 8-bit, so I can show this a little bit. Let's make a white circle. Right, so this white circle, if you see here in the info panel, will be R255, G255, B255. That's 8-bit color, going from 0 to 255. Now, that's completely fine in some cases, but let's say if I make a background, let's do a gradient. Let's do a gradient to like be a little bit, maybe do like super dark red or something. All right, so we have a gradient. So I'm not sure that this video will probably compress, so you might get it even more. But anyway, so if you look into the info panel here, you can see there's not a smooth transition from black to red. So you can see every couple of pixels, it goes up 1. Because it doesn't have enough values to do this transition properly. So that's 8-bit color. JPEG is 8-bit color. So JPEG throws away a lot of information. Now you could say, okay, so you have PNG can be 16-bit. So you could put this up to 16-bit. Okay, now you can see we have a much smoother gradient. But it's still in this weird workspace. If we put to 16-bit, you can see now we have 0 to 158. That's going to be a linear space. And the cool thing about this is that it can also be above a certain level. So let's say if I Gaussian blur this thing, Gaussian blur this. That's okay. So now it's going to be a little bit over 1 here, and then it's going to go down. You can also put this to expose over. So now, wait, this center will be super wide. So let's say if you point your camera at a super bright hotspot, like a super bright reflection, if you have it in 8-bit color, so let's, not sure how I can show that, but if you have this in 8-bit color, and if I turn down the color, this would be, so I turn to 8-bit, I'm not sure if I can show it, this would be 255. So if I then turn down the brightness, nothing will change. There won't be any gradient information here anymore because it's just 255. There's no information. Well, if we keep it linearly, like 1 is super wide, but we can even go above that. Like now this is 16. If I just keep turning this down, you see the gradient starts to appear. So anyway, so what we generally want to do is when we render, we want to render in EXR and we want to render at float. So that's the 0 to 1 values, which can go above that as well. You also have, I'm not sure, oh, you can, on Mantra, you can also put it to integer, but in Redshift you cannot. You can also do 32-bit float, which is a lot heavier. Generally don't use that. Maybe you do for like motion vectors and stuff. We'll go back into that more. But in general, use EXR if you're going to be compositing your renders. Again, we're going to do the final comp in Fusion, not in After Effects, but just wanted to show this in After Effects, it's just easier to show. So anyway, we can put the render to sphere render XR, and it's gonna include the multipass as well. And again, you could use all of this stuff like $F4, like all the stuff that we discussed before. So we can just say render to disk, and now it would render this to disk. So yeah, then we have our render, and then we could load that into our rendering pack, into our compositing package. So if I were to go into After Effects now and just type Ctrl-I, and then I could click sphere render, and now I have my beautiful render here. So you also saw the background in it. You can disable that on the light dome here. So disable the background, just render to disk. So now it will have alpha. All right, so that's the basics. Just very quickly, because this is all the stuff that we'll be discussing for now. And then we'll, like right now, I think it's best if we just move into, well, doing actual rendering on, like actual shading on our objects. So it will start making more sense. Again, you also have Mantra inside of Houdini. So if I could make a Mantra rob here. And then there's, for example, a whole bunch of Mantra materials here. So I could say that maybe I want to do like iron or something. And it would make a material here. Where did it put? Yeah, so there's the Mantra principled material. So let's say I could put the Mantra material on our thing here, and then you could go to, and the lights, by the way, won't work with redshift lights won't work, I think, with Mantra, but you could go make a Mantra render view, go on the plus icon, new pane, go to Mantra rendering, render view, just press render. Need to add some lights probably. Just add some add a light like that, and let's say that we want the Mantra to use cam 2. Press render. Oh, I want to put it to the Mantra rob. Sorry. So again, I mean, I could have done the scene in Mantra, but again, like Mantra is quite slow. And I generally just use Redshift in production. So that's why this course just uses Redshift. But again, like all of the same principles apply to any render engine. And Mantra is in general super powerful. It's just powerfully, like super slow as well. Right, so now you can see side of Mantra. So I could also make like a Mantra light, and I could say that I want to where was the texture again? Sky environment map. Go over there, put in. You can sort of press like where do you want to do the thing we want to. We could go in here and then go in the render as divide it, and like these are the mantra. Go in here, so engine, so it's 10 to 5. Again, you also have these pixel samples here. You have diffuse quality, reflection quality. So it's like a lot of these settings are somewhat similar to you would read in Redshift, but it's a different render engine. It's super powerful, but just very slow. So we get could like if I make a let's make a grid. So just do some basic stuff maybe. So just show it. Let's say there's itself principle. Could apply that to. So yeah, we have this this mantra thing going on. So again, it's just, I mean, you could also do a lot of this stuff in mantra, but we'll be using using Redshift. So yeah, without further ado, I guess let's continue. So just quickly before we start shading some assets, like actual assets in Redshift, I'm going to very briefly go over ACES. So ACES is a way of managing colors inside of rendering, because the underwater scene was rendered in ACES. So yeah, let's briefly discuss ACES.